Right. Good morning and welcome to Norcal APEX Accelerator's Mentor-Protege Programs Overview, covering the Department of Defense and the Small Business Administration Mentor-Protege programs. My name is Amanda Anderson. I'm the Program Coordinator for Norcal APEX Accelerator, and today I'm joined by our fantastic procurement specialist, Mary Jo Juarez. She has extensive contracting experience with the Department of Navy and is often helping small businesses just like yours connect with larger primes and larger agencies to secure those government contracts. But before we get into the bulk of this presentation, I do want to let you know a little bit about Norcal APEX Accelerator and the APEX Accelerator program as a nationwide program and how we can help you with government contracting. So, the APEX Accelerator program is a nationwide network of local centers that are funded and developed to help you with government contracting. From anything to your initial certifications and market research to see if you can have success and find contracts in the government market, to helping you get your registrations and submit bid proposals. And even after you win your first contract, Apex Accelerators can help you with contract compliance and helping to make sure all of your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted on all your paperwork. We really are a resource for government contracting from beginning to end. And the best part is that all of our resources, from our counseling to our webinars to any other programs that we offer, are available to you at absolutely no cost. So you absolutely should get connected. But I want to explain a little bit about how Norcal APEX Accelerator offers this assistance. So at Norcal APEX Accelerator, we're able to offer our main assistance to those 15 Northern California counties that you see on your screen. And we offer that assistance through three main pillars. First, our one-on-one counseling, where once you are accepted as a client, you'll be paired with a procurement specialist who can sit down with you one-on-one over Zoom or in our Cal Poly Humboldt office, and they'll sit down and help you through any hiccups or hurdles you may be experiencing in government contracting, whether it's the initial market research to find out what opportunities are there for you, or maybe you know you have an opportunity and you want to start putting together a bid proposal. You're so excited about it, but you definitely want someone to review it. Your counselor, once you're connected for one-on-one counseling, is your coach in a corner almost. They're here for you via email, via phone call, and up to you to schedule when you want. So if you need to meet with your counselor when you're first brought on for maybe twice or three times a month, you absolutely can. Once you get your feet under you and you can kind of get everything going and you're a bit more self-sufficient, you can decide to meet with your counselor once a month or once every couple of months just to check in and make sure that you are on the right track. And another huge benefit of this counseling is our second pillar, which is our custom bid matching program. Now, this is something that our counselors usually sit down and do with you at your first initial meeting, possibly your second. And what they do is they help you define the criteria that you are looking for in a good bid opportunity. So say your product is really innovative and really niche. And so in that case, your product would probably be that criteria. You would want to see that product name in the solicitation. Or maybe you can only perform services in a certain geographical location. Maybe you can only perform areas in the Bay Area. That location can be a criteria. And so you sit down with your counselor and define this criteria, and we put it into a software that scrapes the local, state, and federal procurement sites for opportunities related to you and related to that criteria. and then they'll send those opportunities directly to your email. So you're cutting out a ton of work in finding these opportunities just by utilizing this custom bid matching software that our clients can get access to for free. And our third pillar, which is one you're actually taking advantage of right now, is our resources and training. We put on a variety of webinars and in-person events throughout the year covering anything from introductory topics to more advanced topics like today's with the Mentor-Protege program. On top of that, we also boast a wide variety of resources and links on our website. And all of these, from the webinars to the website resources, are absolutely available to you at no cost, whether or not you are in our service area. So if you haven't had a chance to connect with Norcal APEX Accelerator, if you're within our service area, or with your local APEX Accelerator if you're outside of our service area, please do. It's an absolutely free resource to help you with government contracting. So there's really nothing to lose. And so with that, I will go ahead and pass it off to Mary Jo for our main presentation.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be here with you today and talk about these two Mentor-Protege programs. So this is our agenda. We're going to start first with the Department of Defense Mentor-Protege program. Then we'll go to the program that is the Small Business Administration. We're going to talk about which program is right for you, how to get started. Now, we're also going to take a little bit of time. We're going to explore the risks and commitments of these programs, how you can benefit from a subcontracting plan and what a subcontracting plan is, because it ties into both of these. And it's important for you to understand it for marketing reasons. And then, provided we have time at the very end, we're going to talk about how to find a mentor. So our training disclosure is that the information presented herein is accurate to the best of the presenter's ability at the time of this presentation. However, some or all of the provisions contained herein may be changed by the current administration with or without prior notice. Okay, could we go to the next slide, please, Amanda? And let's go on to the next slide also. Thank you. So the DoD Mentor-Protege program is the oldest Mentor-Protege program that there is. It was established in 1991 during the first Iraq War, and it was established basically as a tool for you, the small businesses. Small businesses are considered the base of the American economy, and DoD wanted to help bring more small businesses into the DoD contracting arena. The whole basis of the program, of course, is to strengthen the industrial base to support DoD and the warfighter. Next slide, please. So with this particular program, who can participate? So to participate as a protege, the small business must have less than half of the size standard corresponding to its primary NAICS codes. So what that means is your NAICS codes are based upon the size standards based upon either number of people or dollars. So for instance, if on your size standard considered small is having 500 employees, you would have to have less than 250 employees. That's how that corresponds here. And if you have questions about this, your APEX Accelerator can always help you. And the second criteria is that the mentor cannot be connected in any way to the protege by individuals or securities or stock options or anything of that nature. Next slide, please. So the protege needs to be a small business concern that's owned and controlled by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals, such as an Indian tribe, a Native Hawaiian organization, It can be an organization that is employing severely disabled individuals, or a small business concern owned and controlled by women, service disabled veterans, hub zones, basically all of the social economic indicators that we have. But it can also be a non-traditional defense contractor or someone who currently has goods and services in the private sector that DoD needs. And the last two that I just mentioned are usually pulled into this program when they have access, or DoD wants access to the services and the goods that these individuals or businesses provide, but these individuals or businesses may not want to have anything to do with DoD on a regular basis. But if they have something that DoD wants, then they can be considered for this program also. Next slide, please. So who can be a mentor? The mentor must be eligible for award of a federal contract, and DoD has to approve all mentors. And on our next slide, I'll show you a list of the currently approved DoD mentors. And by this going out to you, you will also have that information available to you to peruse and look at a later date. But the mentors have to show that they can provide the assistance, that they're in good financial health, that they have good character. They cannot be suspended or debarred. They have to have evidence of the capability to help a protege. In other words, they must have the people and the processes in place to provide the assistance that they say that they can provide. They have to have received DoD contracts totaling at least $100 million in the previous fiscal year. They need to be other than a small entity. In other words, they're generally a large business. They have to have an active subcontracting plan. And I'm going to stop for just a minute and explain why a subcontracting plan is so important. So anytime that an agency wants to put a contract out that's over $10,000, they need to go to the SBA and let the SBA know what they're doing. And they have to have their recommendations based on market research that they've done as to why it would go to large business, small business, or any of these social economic groups. So when you see in SAM a sources sought is not requesting a proposal from you. A sources sought is the government's way of doing market research to see who's out there. In other words, the government wants to know, are there 2 or more small businesses who can perform this work? So that's the key to the marketing tool there. And I know a lot of times everybody really gets busy and they don't respond to those. And then often that project that could have been set aside where your competition would be limited to small businesses like yourselves goes to full and open, and then you're competing with the large businesses also. So just a brief moment about why the sources sought is so important. Well, when the agency and the SBA agree on if this is going to go to large business or if this project's going to go to small business, and generally it will go to large business for several reasons. If the dollar value is so high that a small business can't bond, or they don't have the financial resources to be able to fund the payroll because a project is too large. It could be because of national security. And the third reason is that it could be because a project has so many moving parts that it's difficult for a large business to pull it all together, let alone a small business. However, anytime it goes to a large business, the large business will have a subcontracting plan where the contracting officer, the SBA, and the large business agree to the percentages of that contract in subcontracting dollars that are going to go to small businesses. And there are far limitations, there are far requirements for how much of the subcontracting dollars need to go to small business and all the social economic groups. However, the contracting officer has the ability to raise those. And the highest one I saw when I was in contracting is I saw one where 78% of the subcontracting dollars on a project had to go to small business. So what happens if the prime contractor does not do what they said they would do in the subcontracting plan? Well, years ago, nothing would happen. They would go on and they would get another project. But it was probably about 15, 20 years ago, DoD started and all the agencies started coming down on the large businesses by putting an evaluation factor into the large business request for proposal, where they had to state what they were going to do, what they were going to propose for the subcontracting plan, and how well they had done in the past on subcontracting plans. And right before I retired, I actually sent, well, it was a little bit before I retired, I sent a letter to a prime contractor explaining to them that they owed me $20 million back for not doing anything that they had said that they were going to do on their subcontracting plan. Now, that particular large business flew their private plane up to meet with me, and it was not a good meeting. It was not a good moment for either one of us. But I can say that they quickly became one of the best believers. And to this day, I still refer clients to them, and they pick up clients and they work with small businesses. So it was a very powerful lesson for both of us. I have been in rooms with large businesses where they've stood up and said, hey, we lost this big project because we didn't adhere to what we said we would do. We did not make a good faith effort to do what we said we would do. And that's why you're going to run into a lot of large businesses out at the events that your APEX accelerators have, because they need to be there. And that's also a marketing tool for you. When you meet with a prime, you can, I would not necessarily advise leading off by saying, hey, I'm a small business, but I would say, hey, I am so-and-so. This is what my firm does. And by the way, we're a small business, we're a woman-owned business. You can hit two checks on your subcontracting plan. So it's just good information for you to know. Okay, now back to the slide. An 8A graduate who can document that they can serve as a mentor can also take part in this program. I've not seen that personally. I've worked with a lot of prime contractors, but large ones on this particular program. Now, the prime or the mentor must complete and submit an application. They can only have one DoD active mentor agreement at a time. And both the mentor and the protege are going to be required to do semi-annual reporting. Could we see the next slide, please? So this is a list, and you'll be getting this list of all the currently approved mentor-proteges. That doesn't mean that if you are working with a large firm that they can't go through this process. But these are the ones who are currently approved. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay. So DoD benefits by gaining innovative technologies. Recently, within the past few years, a small business actually redid the Navy's pay system. It was a small business who did that under this program. They also revamped the air traffic control system for the government. The assistance that small businesses are extremely flexible compared to large businesses. They're agile, they can move quicker. They have specialized technologies that DoD wants. Now, this particular Mentor-Protege program is probably the most restrictive with the most metrics of the two programs, just so that you know. At this moment in time on their website, they don't have any restrictions as to what they're looking for. But this past year, they have had examples of specialized technologies that would be the only technologies that they would accept as a mentor-protege program. And those included knowledge-based services such as cybersecurity and software, research and development, and manufacturing. That was actually on their website for the majority of the year until recently when they kind of opened it up a bit. Okay, benefits to the mentor. In the next slide, please. So the mentor has the opportunity to develop long-term relationships and to grow the subcontracting base. They generally have a pretty good subcontracting base, but they're always looking to grow that. And they have teaming opportunities. They also have a couple of other benefits. This program, and this program only, reimburses the mentor in several ways. They provide monetary reimbursement for the cost of assistance incurred by the mentor firm for labor, direct labor only, so the mentor can receive financial assistance. Number two, they can get credit to their subcontracting plan. That's a second option that they have. That subcontracting plan we talked about a few minutes ago, they can get credit to that plan through this program. Or they can choose a hybrid of both, where they can get money and they can get credit. Now, the mentor has to find an agency that's willing to sponsor them and apply for the dollars, and the dollars have to be available, and then a contract is put in place. And what happened to me several times when I was working with mentors and prime contractors who were putting this particular program in place is they would come to me with everything all arranged and set up with their protege. And then when I would go back to Washington, D.C., where there's a pot of money set aside for this program, no more money would be available. And luckily, in that case, the mentors both chose to go ahead, but it is a certain pot of money. It is limited. When the money's gone, the money's gone. Okay, and there is a contract put in place which they have to adhere to. Okay, next slide, please. So the benefits to the protege are that they're going to get technical and business assistance. And this, I think, goes without being said, but on the same hand, I feel it's really important to say this so that you understand. You have to know exactly what you need for these programs. What do you need that you can gain from these large businesses, from your mentor, that they can provide for you? It's going to foster long-term relationships, and it's basically going to help you into the DoD industrial base. Over the past 5 years, I believe there have only been like 192 of the DoD Mentor-Protege programs actually put into place. And a lot of that is probably because, in my view, in my past experience with it, is the requirements and everything that goes along with it. That's not to say it is not beneficial, because it was extremely beneficial to the small businesses that I worked with. But that is a huge difference between this program and the program that we're going to talk about next. So Amanda, I'm going to turn it back to you to see if we have any questions on this particular program.
My mute button hid from me. Sorry.
They escape
Yeah.
every now and then.
We definitely have some questions. And folks, if you do have questions about the DoD Mentor-Protege program, please remember to enter your questions into the Q&A section of Zoom. That way I can make sure we get to all your questions and that they all get answered. So James Hernandez was wondering how they can find out more about sources sought notices.
Sources sought notices are on SAM. And they're out there fairly frequently. And I know it frustrates a lot of the clients I have, because a lot of them initially think that the agency is looking for a proposal to be submitted, and it's not. It's market research. So sources sought don't have a standard format to be followed. Some of the agencies will just ask for your name, your social economic status, maybe how long you've been in business. Other sources sought will have questions that ask you to provide information about projects you've done that are similar to the one that they're putting out there. So there's no standard, but it does state up front that this is a sources sought only.
Fantastic. And then Rekha was wondering, when DoD sets aside a small business set-aside contract, are the small businesses allowed to subcontract to a big business?
When DoD or any agency has a small business set-aside contract, you are allowed to subcontract to a large business, but you have to be very, very careful, because there are limitations on how much you can subcontract to a large business. It can absolutely not be a pass-through where you just, and I actually have clients that come to me and they just want to get the contract and then pass them on to large businesses, and you will be out of government contracting in no time if you do that. That would really be a question for you to sit down and talk about with your APEX Accelerator, because the limitations on subcontracting are pretty much geared to by the type of business that you have. But there are limitations on how much the large business can do and how much you need to self-perform.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Dolene was asking about the list of mentors, which I was able to pull a link to. So this one I'll go ahead and take, Mary Jo. I found the link where we pulled the list that is in the slides. And so it's going to be a PDF document at the very end of the page that will say DoD Mentor-Protege Program Approved Mentor List, parentheses PDF. So that's where you can find the list of approved DoD mentors. And I wanted to take that one because I felt like the link would be the most helpful.
Thank you for doing that, Amanda. I agree.
Of course. And I posted that in chat for everyone to check out, so please feel free to do so. We did have a follow-up, and we're getting a ton more questions. I love all these questions. So we did get a follow-up on the sources sought question that we already answered. And Jason was wondering if past performance is going to be a requirement if you're going after a sources sought notice.
A sources sought notice is not a proposal. Okay, so you're not actually, it's market research for the government. And so they're just looking at who's out there. Sometimes they ask for past performance and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they don't. It just depends, but it's basically information collected by the government for the government to determine whether a small business can perform the work or whether they'll have to go with a large business. So they don't ask you for a proposal. They don't ask you for dollars, what it would cost. It's not, it's basically to benefit the government, but it is also extremely to benefit you as a small business to help set things aside and limit your competition.
Perfect. And as I'm reading through all of these questions, they're fantastic questions. I will note I'm seeing a couple that we will get to further in the presentation. So if your question isn't answered during this section, it will be answered in one of the other two Q&As that we have once we cover it in the presentation first. Okay. You guys have so many questions. Please, I appreciate your patience while I read through them to find the really good ones for this section.
And just a note, I will talk about joint ventures in the next part of the presentation.
Okay. I have a really good question from Christopher. Their small business has been subcontracting with construction primes working for the Army Corps and Engineers, and with an environmental consulting firm with the US Air Force. So does that background make them a bit more viable, or does it put them on the trajectory to be a good protege or a possible mentor?
Absolutely. Any experience is going to be helpful, but if you have experience where you are currently a sub to a prime contractor that has a federal government contract, chances are you're going to have to go through all the painful things like badging, learning how much time it takes to get on and off a base, learning to move around on one, and that just makes it easier for you and easier for the agencies too, that you know that information.
Fantastic. Okay, and this is a good question too from anonymous attendee. To clarify, can a small business still get a mentor if they're not a small disadvantaged business certified?
That, let me think here. That's a really good question.
Getting into the details.
I know, getting into the details. Your problem that you're going to run into with your prime contractors is because there is so much regiment and strictness, and there has been so much fraud in the past with the subcontracting plans, that pretty much almost all the large primes I've worked with now are requiring some type of proof as to your size. A lot of them require these certifications. Some of them will just go as look in SAM and see what you've self-certified as. So, Amanda, I'm not sure I've got a really good answer for that question, because it can kind of depend. I would never say never know.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it sounds like that might be a better question for one-on-one counseling with your local APEX Accelerator, because then your counselor can really get into your specific business details, your specific contracting journey, and really help you figure out if it is possible, if it's a good idea for you. And that's really where a one-on-one counseling shines, is in the
Right.
details.
Is in the details, and also to help you understand how you might be limiting yourself.
Fantastic. And then we'll do one more question, and then we'll move on to the SBA certification or MPP program. Apologies. And this one is from David Scott. He is an authorized dealership for Canon, and they have a robust federal sales team. They would like to encourage them to be an approved DoD mentor, but they don't really know how to get them connected to become that mentor. Do you have any advice on how a business could connect with DoD to become a DoD approved mentor?
Amanda, I believe on the website everything is right there on the website. There's a link on there as to what the mentor needs to do, and it's a very detailed document. I think it's probably around 12 pages, but it has some information as to the information that they need to submit. It's all on the website there.
Fantastic. And I will drop that website in chat one more time just to make sure everybody has it. That is your go-to for DoD Mentor-Protege program information.
Right. They have a lot of information there. And just so all of you know, they've actually got the names and the phone numbers for every part of DoD where you can call and talk to somebody or send them an email. Either way, all that information is right there under the contacts also.
Fantastic. And so with that, we'll wrap up our first Q&A, but do not worry. If your questions were not answered, we'll either be going over them later on the presentation and we'll answer them in a later Q&A, or I'm going to be going ahead and typing in some answers with maybe some links, maybe some resources that you're asking for. So I'm going to try and answer what I can in the Q&A as well. So with that, on to SBA.
On to SBA. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So the SBA Mentor-Protege program was also established to help small businesses to gain experience, to gain participation opportunities within government contracting. Now, this program has gone through several reiterations. It started out as an 8A Mentor-Protege program. Then they changed it to the all-small Mentor-Protege program. And it's now the SBA Mentor-Protege program. Okay, next slide, please. Now, this program requires a formal agreement. The SBA has to review and approve the formal agreement. The mentor can be typically large or small, depending on the size standards. Now, the difference here, it's not half the size standard, it's just the size standard for your NAICS code. But I will say that in my experience with this program, I've only seen large businesses as a mentor. And I think a lot of that just depends upon the services that are provided. The protege must be small according to the size standard, already said that, and the NAICS code. This one has an initial term of 3 years with a 3-year extension available. And you as a business are only allowed to have 2 of these mentor-protege agreements in the lifetime of your business. And I believe that what they're looking at is if you have 2 of these 6-year programs, that's 12 years total, and you should be pretty self-sufficient by the time that you get through with 12 years of having a mentor. This program also has a huge difference in that if this is not working out, you find it's not working out within the first 18 months, you can cancel the program and it's not going to hurt you and count against your 2-year limitation. Okay, so that's also kind of important to remember. Next slide, please. Okay, so here we're going to talk about a number of things. The Mentor-Protege SBA program document basically starts with when you go into the website, which Amanda has attached at the end of the slide. It's going to start out with declarations. In other words, Company A is a large business who does this. Company B is a small business who does this. Then the second part of it is it's going to go into the mentor responsibilities. And I want to spend just a moment talking about the mentor responsibilities to give you some ideas for things that you might need for your firm. So some examples are management and technical assistance, which could be access to software that the mentor might have. It could also be robust systems, internal systems that the mentor has that you may want to duplicate or learn how to apply to your business. A second area would be financial, and a lot of the financial I've seen is where construction firms don't have the money to bond, but the mentor will help them by back bonding them, by providing the bonding. And another under financial might be accounting systems. In other words, if you're feeling like your accounting system isn't up to par for what the government will be looking at, this might be the type of assistance that you might request from a mentor. A third one would be assistance in government contracting. This, I see a lot of firms who request assistance with government contracting, in particular with proposals, reading, understanding proposals, understanding the risks of within the request for proposal and matching the two together. The fourth one, business development. A large firm or a mentor can help you search for opportunities beyond what the APEX can do. And they can also share their contacts and arrange one-on-one opportunities for you to meet with their contacts. That might be something that you ask for. And the last one I could think of is administrative. That would be, to me, administrative is training that they can give you. Like if you want to be the ISO certified, maybe they can give you training and help you with that. If you have problems understanding all the taxes and tax requirements, they can help you with that. Those are just some of the types of things that you can ask for that I've seen in the past. Now, the protege's responsibilities are to make sure the assistance that you ask for aligns with your business plan. Okay, this goes back to that question we talked about earlier. You need to know what it is that you don't know, what you need. You need to know what you need to grow. And it's really hard when you don't know what you need to grow, but you really need to talk with someone, whether it's your APEX Accelerator or whether it's a potential mentor, to figure out what it is that your firm is missing and fill in those gaps. It's an excellent opportunity to fill in those gaps. There is an annual Mentor-Protege report that is due to the SBA, and there are contract self-performance responsibilities. This is not a pass-through, and I'm going to go into that in a little more detail, I believe, in a couple of slides. But the big thing is to know and understand what you're responsible for. And one thing you're responsible for is making sure that this is not a pass-through, that you are performing and self-performing the work that needs to be done. And then we get the last part of the document is the who, what, where, and when. And under who, they're going to ask for specific names on both sides, the mentor and the protege, who they are, what their job title is, what you will be doing, what both sides will be doing, how often you're going to be meeting, and what metrics. So what's the expectation at the end of this agreement as to where you will be and what the mentor will have provided. Okay, next slide, please. So I put this slide in so that you could see that this is some of the information that the mentor needs to provide, because the SBA is really concerned about the mentor being authentic and able to provide you with the information that you really need. So they're going to ask for a copy of the mentor-protege agreement. They're going to ask for a copy of the protege's profile from the dynamic small business search. And this is not, even though this form says 8A, it's not 8A specific. If you're not an 8A, you would still be in the DSBS dynamic small business search. And if you're not, get with your APEX Accelerator. We can help you get in there. And that needs to be provided. Now, the third one is specific to 8As because they have an annual update that they have to do. The fourth one, a copy of the business plan, is not specific to 8As, and I apologize for that, and I'll make sure we remove that for the next event that we do. But your business plan, if you need assistance with that, please let us know, and we can definitely help you with that. The rest of the information here is all financial information, tax information that the mentor needs to provide, because the SBA wants to make sure that neither one is going to fail, that the mentor's not going to fail on you because they're going out of business. The last item here, in spite of everything that they're already asking for, the SBA wants a narrative on the mentor's letterhead that, again, specifically spells out what they're going to be doing and how they're going to be doing it, so that the SBA can verify that the mentor is truly, in fact, healthy and able to provide you the assistance that they say that they're going to. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to get into the, I don't know, nuts and bolts or whatever you want to call it. Once the agreement is in place, that creates a relationship. Okay, the agreement creates a relationship. The two parties come together and they create a joint venture. The joint venture creates a separate entity, which is owned by both the mentor and the protege. Okay, so you get the agreement in place. The SBA reviews the agreement. Everything is good. You come together, you form the joint venture, you create a separate entity that's owned by both. That's entered into SAM as a complete separate legal entity, which is going to be proposing on contracts. Okay. Ownership is one thing. Cost sharing is another thing. Okay, so the majority has to be owned by the protege. 51% has to be owned by the protege. And we're going to keep that in mind because when I talk a little bit in another slide or two, that's going to become really important to you and how this is going to impact you. The contents, and Amanda, can I ask you to enter this into the chat, is specifically spelled out in 13 CFR 125.8. And that's a document where if you follow that document, you can, it's basically like a template. And there are templates also on the SBA website, which we also have at the end of the program that's going to help you with the joint venture. The joint venture has to self-perform with labor. And again, like I mentioned earlier, that's going to depend upon what type of joint venture it is. In other words, if you're providing services, 51% of the labor is going to have to be performed by the joint venture. However, the protege is going to have to self-perform 40% of that 51%. Okay. And some of this stuff can get a little mind-boggling and a little mind-twisting, and we can help you with that individually. That's really the best way to do it. So the SBA is not going to approve the joint venture. They're only going to approve joint ventures if it's an 8A joint venture for sole source work only. Okay. So one thing just for you to think about, I mean, everything that we offer you is just advice, and you can take it or you can leave it. You've got to do what's best for your company. But if you're looking at putting a joint venture such as this in place, a lot of times as an APEX counselor, I might do the initial review for the client against the regulation that Amanda just put into the chat, but then often advise the client to go ahead and have an attorney look at it also, because it is a binding document. Now, the most important thing about this program is the size considerations. This joint venture will look small even if your mentor is huge. Okay, out of all the joint venture programs, this is the only one where the mentor has an opportunity to play in the small business field. So if the protege is an 8A, the joint venture is considered an 8A. If the protege is a hub zone, the joint venture is a hub zone and able to bid on those set-aside opportunities. This is, as you're talking to firms that you want to have as your mentor, that might be something that you might want to bring up in case they don't know that. This is the only program where this happens. All of this being said about this program, remember in the very beginning, we read that little statement about this is true to the best of our knowledge at this particular point in time. The SBA is reviewing this program at this particular point. If you can imagine, it has been too successful. Now, I don't know how to explain to you what too successful means, or why that would even be a negative thing, but they're looking at possibly adding some restrictions or something to the type of contracts or something that these programs can bid on. We're not going to talk about that now, because at this particular point in time, it's not law, it's not regulation, it's not in place. There are opportunities out there where you can find out about this, but the information that we presented to you up to this point is the program as it is now, and as slowly as the government has to move in changing regs, it's probably the program that's going to be in place for a little while. And Amanda, I'm going to turn this over to you at this point.
Perfect. Yeah, and like Mary Jo said, the SBA is still upgrading and updating this system. So that is a perfect reason to get connected with your local APEX Accelerator centers, whether you're in our service area or not. You can always sign up for our newsletter. We keep a very close eye on these updates, especially to critical systems like these certification portals. So we will definitely let you know as soon as we know that that is open, and we do plan to redo and kind of represent this content once we have all of that portal information updated. So sign up for our newsletter, connect with your local APEX Accelerator to stay up to date on those items. And so now we move into our second Q&A portion. And so I want to note, we're going to tackle the SBA specific questions first, and then I'll bounce back to some of the DoD questions that have come through, since I know once the information kind of settles and kind of sits for a minute, you start to come up with more questions. So we'll focus on SBA first, get into DoD, and then we'll get into the next section.
Okay, thank you, Amanda.
Yeah. So let's see. James was wondering, what happens if a mentor turns out to be not a good fit for the company? Does it affect the protege's standing in the program? And can you find a new mentor?
The SBA Mentor-Protege program is the only one where you can say this is not working for me and find a new mentor, and it does not impact. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't impact you. In our next session, James, I am going to talk about some situations that I incurred as a contracting officer where nobody stopped it when it didn't work. And we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. And since that was a bit of an open question, it kind of made me wonder, is it the same for DoD Mentor-Protege, or is it a bit more strict?
DoD is more strict.
Good to know. Fantastic. And then someone in the audience was wondering if the SBA program is different from SBDC. I'm happy to take this one because I work with the local SBDCs quite often, and there is a difference. So SBA is the federal agency, and they are the ones who fund SBDC as a local resource center for you. So SBDCs are not a part of the Mentor-Protege program under SBA in any way, shape, or form. They're another resource partner, kind of like us, the way that we're here at absolutely no cost to help you fill out all this paperwork and get all the regulations in place and make sure you're compliant and that stuff. SBDC operates in the same way with general business assistance. So you can go to your SBDC for help with bookkeeping, with marketing, even with some introductory level government contracting as well. They are a fantastic resource, but not related to the Mentor-Protege program under the SBA. And then I had someone asking, do mentors have a price check or price control on the contracts that you pick up under a joint venture?
Um, that's something that you need to work out together. The the oh, I can't. The ownership is controlled. The price is something that the cost sharing is something that you need to work out, together. However, if you own 51% of it, the cost sharing isn't automatically 51%, yours, unless it's spelled out that way. I think a lot of it, even though you have to self-perform, a lot of it can be who's bringing what to the table. Is the mentor bringing all the heavy equipment to the table? Because there might be a lot of costs there in huge equipment. It depends. It's something that you need to sit down and work out with a mentor.
Yeah, perfect. And then we had a question about the joint venture. Does the joint venture always go with the protégés certifications, or can it be like the mentor certifications are representative? And the example that they gave was if the mentor is 8A and the protégé is WOSB, would the joint venture become just a WOSB joint venture, or would it be 8A joint venture, or could they combine those certifications and represent both?
That's a really, really good question, and I've not been asked that question before. My understanding is that it goes with the protégés and all the regs and everything that I have looked at. But Amanda, is there a way that I can do a little more research on that question and we can send an email to everybody?
Absolutely.
Something, could we do that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and pull the question and I'll send it over to you in an email after the event so we have the question for you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's going to be the protégés, whatever the protégé, if the protégé is woman owned, it's going to be woman owned. But let me check and just make sure, because that's a very unusual question. I've not been asked that before.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've heard as well, because typically the mentor is looking to partner with a smaller business to meet those certifications for the contracts they're interested in. Because
Right.
there's usually some sort of small business or like disadvantaged business like requirement. And so the mentor is typically looking to utilize the small business to utilize their certifications.
Right, absolutely. And in my experience, it's almost, well, in my experience, it has always been a large firm and a small firm,
Yeah,
pulling together to take advantage of different things that they have.
absolutely. All right, and so now we're going to circle back to DoD. We do have plenty of time. We just hit the top of the hour. So we'll get into the DoD questions before we get into which program is right for you. And so Jo is asking, can two small businesses that are certified small businesses with no past performance form a mentor-protege kind of agreement to perform on a DoD contract?
Okay, so um, there are all kinds of mentors. Okay, for instance, we can even look at ourselves as mentors to you. Um, so companies often form joint ventures together without either one of these programs, without the requirements of either one of these programs. Companies form joint ventures together to bid on specific contracts. Yes. It's still a situation where you need to make sure you have some type of agreement in writing as to who's performing what to protect yourselves. And then you would still have to enter the entity, do it legally, and then enter the joint venture into SAM, which means you're also going to have to, in SAM, you're going to have to set it up with the state. You're going to have to get an EIN, da. So it's going to have to be a separate entity that you're going to be involved in. If you are setting up joint ventures outside of these programs, is what I'm talking about now, just make sure that that everything is spelled out as to who is going to be doing what. Because we get a lot of clients who get into situations and they've forgotten to include something. For instance, who's going to invoice? A lot of times I get clients who form joint ventures with each other and then they forget who's going to invoice. And you think that's easy, but invoicing when you're working with the government is not easy. A lot of agencies have their own specific program that you have to register in, and you have to be accepted, and you have to do this, and the contracting officer has to do that. Invoicing in itself is not just sending a bill in and saying, here, pay this. So just some things to think about. Again, something really good to talk to with your APEX Accelerator.
Absolutely. And then we had another question that I actually really liked. Can the mentor or the larger business give the small businesses work outside of DoD contracts as a part of this agreement? Like, say if they had like public or private, I guess private sector would be correct, private sector work that the small business can absolutely help them with.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the whole point of these two agreements, is to bring the small businesses into the mentors world and expose them to other opportunities. And often, even after the mentor-protege agreements expire, those proteges stay within the mentors database for opportunities.
Fantastic. And then we just have a couple more questions that I want to get to. Ankur listed a couple that I think are fantastic for this Q&A section. So first off, as a part of the DoD mentorship program, do you have to set up a formal joint venture with your mentor and protege?
As a part of the DoD, yes, I believe that you do. I'm so
Okay.
sorry. I have switched into the SBA one. Gone down ahead. But
Yeah.
yes,
Okay. So it will be similar to how like the agreement for
similar
the
to,
SBA is a
right,
joint venture.
right. And
Okay.
that's done to protect you, and we're going to talk about that in just a few more minutes in this next session in a little bit more detail, but it's done to protect you.
Yeah. And we do have quite a few questions that will be answered in the next section, so that's why they haven't been answered quite yet. I am keeping an eye on them, I promise. And if we don't answer them completely or entirely in the next session, we will have one more Q&A where we'll wrap up and get everybody's questions answered. Ankur was also wondering if they can use the mentor's past performance as their own as a part of the DoD MPP.
That, Amanda, is a really, really touchy question, and you almost have to read every request for proposal because they are now spelling out in a lot of instances whether you can use that performance or whether you cannot.
So yeah, it's kind of by a case by case, RFP by RFP kind of situation.
And happy to review those RFPs with you because it's generally going to be in there as to what you can use and what you cannot use. And a lot of times it will mean that you can't propose if you can't use it, but that's okay because it's probably something, if that's the case, you don't want that project anyway, it's going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. And then we'll answer one more question from his four because the fourth one should be answered in the next section. Does the mentor need to have the same NICS codes as the protege? No.
No. And as a matter of fact, under the SBA program, they are allowed, I forget how many, maybe to have like 2 or 3 different proteges at a time, but they can absolutely not be in the same industry. They have to, so it usually never happens like that because your mentors are, specifically for one industry, but they do not. Yeah.
In my mind, and I have very limited knowledge about the program, but in my mind, it would make more sense to partner with folks not in your NICS code, but in a complementary NICS code. So that you can do the project like as a team and everybody kind of covers their specialty in a way.
That's really good, Amanda. And also, everybody remember, you can go into SAM and add more NAICS codes at any time. You just go in and update and add more NAICS codes as you're getting more experience in other areas.
Absolutely. And while we're on the topic of NICS codes, are you aware of any kind of service that will send notices based on the NICS code? I know our custom bid matching can, but I'm wondering if there is anything that maybe non-clients can access.
I work so much with bid match because it's just so incredible and so great that and it saves so much time for the firms that's basically where my
Yeah,
expertise is. Yeah.
that's where my brain went to as well. And the best part is once you're set up with your local Apex Accelerator Center, you should get access to that bid match at absolutely no cost. You can get the counselor to help you set it up and make sure you have all of your NICS code and any other kind of identifying criteria that you want. And that's probably going to be the easiest way to really get those solicitations sent directly to your inbox.
Yes.
Fantastic. Let me do one scan. We did have a couple more come in that should be fairly quick. Someone was wondering how many joint ventures you can form and if there is a limit. And I believe this was in response to the SBA.
There is a limit of 2.
And is that for proteges and mentors?
That is for the protege.
Okay.
Okay, the mentor, I believe the mentor can have up to 3 at one time. They usually don't,
Yeah.
you
It
know,
can be a
because
lot.
it's their resources and their time and everything, and they're not getting reimbursed like the DoD one is. So they're doing it out of their belief in the small business and helping the small business.
Yeah. And then Raul was wondering if there's a list of mentors for the SBA program in a similar way that DoD has that list of mentors.
Amanda, I looked for that and I have not found it. I even called somebody at the SBA and they told me, what are you talking about? All they have to do is go find a mentor themselves and then they can be a mentor. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so
that
look,
makes sense
yeah,
because with SBA, they don't have to be like agency approved mentors, right? But that was a specific stipulation on the DoD program. They have to be DoD approved.
right.
Fantastic. And then I have one more. The rest I do believe we will get to in the next session. And Rika, I do apologize if I missed your question. I must have mismarked it. I apologize. But she was wondering how to become a protege for DoD. And is that something that we'll probably be discussing that in the next section as well?
We will be. And Amanda, for the next session, we're talking about which one is right for you. Do you want me to go straight into how to find a mentor at the same
Yeah,
time or
it
okay?
seems like there's a lot of interest in that. So I think that would be a perfect place to kind of detail. You have this
Okay.
information now. What are you going to do with it?
Okay. Okay, good.
Fantastic. So let me just do one more scan of the Q&A, make sure we got all of the program specific questions out because we're going to be moving into the next steps in trying to figure out if any of these programs and which one would be right for your business. Oh, there is a good one. I think it'd be good to kind of wrap up this Q&A if you could summarize just really briefly who would qualify or what kinds of businesses would qualify for these mentor-protege programs. In a specific sense, do they have to be in a certain demographic, in a certain certification kind of class, or any kind of specificities that you would say? And I will say it may be easier to pick out who doesn't qualify. That might be a shorter list.
I think from my own personal experience, because of the metrics and requirements that the small businesses and the mentors have to do, that you need to be a small business with some experience of your own. Okay, you need to be set up. You need to have your HR, and I'm not saying every business needs this, because you absolutely don't, but whatever, whether it's your HR, whether it's your accounting, whether it's your proposal group, whatever is important to you needs to be already established. And I would even suggest having, if not actually receiving, a couple of contracts on your own, at the very minimum, having applied for some contracts on your own. Because when you work with a mentor, they're going to be taking you forward so fast. If you don't have that pyramid of your business built, you're going to topple, and you're not going to be able to benefit from everything that they have to offer. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. And just so I can summarize, my understanding is it's open to anybody, but what's really going to get you in with those mentors is going to be past performance or some initiative towards government contracting, and then having your business really on a stable foundation to withstand any kind of hiccups or hurdles that may happen.
Right. Very well put. Yep.
Fantastic. And with that, we'll go ahead and go into our next section.
Okay, which one is right for you? Next slide, please. Okay, so the DoD Mentor-Protege program is a 2 to 3 year program. They're in the process right now. It has been 2 years. I believe it's in the process, or might already be 3 years. It's established by DoD. You have the potential for DoD to put out specifics as what they want the mentor-proteges, and what they want the proteges and the mentors to be doing. So it might be more limiting because of that. The prime has to be approved by DoD. The prime is issued a contract by DoD, which means that they are going to be following a set of rules specifically in order not to follow that contract. And they receive dollars or credit or both to a subcontracting. They can get credit to the subcontracting plan, receive dollars, or both. The SBA Mentor-Protege is a 6-year program. The prime and the protege determine what goals need to be met and where they want to go, and the SBA must approve the initial agreement. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, out of this whole slide, the most important thing is the first bullet there. You have to know what you need before you go into these, or it's not going to benefit you at all. And I've seen it happen. I'm going to talk about that in just a few minutes. But knowing what it is you need, and hopefully we gave you some ideas to think about. I mean, if nothing else, take a look at your business plan and where you compare where you are now to where you started, and revise your business plan and see where it is that you want to end up in the next 5 years or 10 years or whatever period you want for your business. What do you need to get there? So this is a marriage. It requires courtship and dating. In many cases, the proteges are already in the supplier base of the mentor and selected from that supplier base, because then they know who you are. And we'll address this when we talk about how to find a mentor. You need to be marketing yourselves to large primes for subcontracting opportunities and partnerships. And Amanda will be talking at the end about events that we might be having. And then perform and establish yourself as a value-added supplier and candidate for the program. And I'm going to talk about that here in more detail in just a minute too. Next slide, please. Okay, risks. There's a commitment in the program, and there are huge, there can be huge metrics that you need to keep track of, which is really, really hard to remember on busy days. One thing I would recommend, and I've helped a couple of businesses set this up, is when you get into a mentor-protege program or any program of this sort where you're going forward, it's so much easier if you have a system for tracking what's happening real time, so that when you come down a year from today, when you're doing a report, you can go into that file and you can look at everything that you have done that you've forgotten about. And this could be training, this could be events that you attended, it could be proposals that you did, it could be any number of things. It just depends upon what you're asking. But tracking it real time is super, super important. You, as a small business, are responsible for making sure all the rules, regulations, and processes are being followed. We can help you with that. You're not out there alone. Do not be used by the prime contractor for their benefit only. And this one is super, super important, because I have seen multiple times where the prime leaves the protege in the dust. The protege did not pay attention, didn't mention anything, didn't get the education, didn't get the profit from the project. And that's a failure for both of them. Okay. When I was I'm trying to think of a way to say this. When I was a contracting officer and I awarded you a contract, coming into my office and marketing was one thing. You did not want to come into my office with a problem. Okay. I might have had, I don't know, 100 different construction contracts going on at a time. And if you had a problem without a solution, that was not necessarily a good thing. And you remember on these joint ventures that the protege owns 51% of it. When you're sitting across from me and there's a problem, you don't point to the large business sitting beside you and say, they're a large business. And I'm like, stop. You own 51% of this. This is your responsibility. These rules and regulations are there for you to follow. So if that ever happens to you where you get in that situation, come to your APEX. We can help you. One thing that I would advise, and I for a small business, is if you ever fail in any area, fix it and put a process in place that's going to make sure, to the best of your ability, that the failure does not happen again. And most importantly, put that into that second bullet, into that file where you remember for future proposals what you did, because there are proposals out there now that are asking you to explain a failure that you encountered and what you did to fix it. And it's so hard to remember if you're not dealing in real time. And the government, if you don't fail on your own, the government's probably going to help you fail in some way, shape, or form, just because everything changes. The conditions aren't necessarily what they were in the RFP. The expectations you're dealing with people are different. So it's just really, really important to have that skill of being able to recover, and to recover gracefully, and let someone know what you've done to recover. That's super, super important. Okay. So that being said, let's talk for a moment about how to find a mentor. Okay, so there are those lucky, blessed people who are in high school, they go to the prom, they meet the person they're going to marry, and they live happily ever after. Well, that wasn't me. And that's probably not going to likely be you in your business. So finding a mentor is kind of like a marriage. It's not going to happen tomorrow because you attended this class today. Not going to happen right after the prom. Things you can, I saw that flash. That wasn't me either. I like that. Things you can do to find a mentor are to start attending your industry events for your particular industry. Go to educational events. If you see a job out there and you read the RFP and you see that there's a job walk, regardless of what, they do a lot of job walks, not just for construction, but I have one client who is does events. Okay, and they also do job walks. Go to those job walks and start connecting with people who might be proposing on something that you might not propose. Number one, you can be looking for subcontract, But number two, you can also be evaluating them as far as a mentor goes. If you go to a large event, and I've been to events where there've been, when I was a deputy for small business, there would be thousands of people. I would always tell the businesses, research the event ahead of time, pick out between 3 to 5 primes or agencies that you want to meet with. And if you meet with just that number of people the whole day with those that you've selected, your day is a huge success, because you're going to eliminate 1 or 2 of those 5 that don't match your values, and you're not going to be wanting to work with them. When you're at events, a lot of the people who are there are not the people who are going to give you a contract. They're the small business liaison officers, both for the prime contractor and for the government. So they're your SBLOs, but they're really important for you to meet with them, follow up with them. After you meet again with them, follow up with them again. Eventually, you will get into their organization. Ask them if they have other people who that they know that they would recommend that you can meet with once you get to know each other a little bit better. Because I've been retired out of the government for probably close to 20 years. And I still I got a call yesterday from the port of San Diego looking for small businesses who can do this and this and that. It's a small community and you're interconnected. And so even if that person can't help you, just ask, do you know of someone else in your group, in your industry, who might be able to help me? Learn, this is going to be really hard for a lot of people to do, but it's super important to at least consider doing it. One of the biggest fears that I've often read about in doing public presentations is that people fear speaking in public more than they fear death. Okay, so a lot of industry organizations, even our APEX organization, you will always see calls for speakers because everybody's always looking for a speaker. So whatever your business is, pick one area where you can become an expert and you're willing to get up and talk about it. Because you know what? If you're at an event that the APEX Accelerator puts on, primes are there, and you're going to have a bunch of primes listening to you. You will be speaking directly to them, and that is so much more powerful than talking to somebody at a booth. I would be at those booths, and at one of them, when I got back to the office, I had over 700 capability statements, and my mind was just shot. And I had people who I wanted to talk to again, but when I got through, I honestly and shamefully could not remember who those people were, because people were moving in so fast, and I even though I would mark it, I couldn't remember what I had marked it for. So if you can get up in front of people and speak, that makes a long lasting impression. And if you don't want to speak, then post something, write an article, become known in your industry, post something on LinkedIn or any other of the industry specific websites that are out there. And like I said, always remember to end a conversation with, is there anyone else you can introduce me to? Is there anyone else in your network who you think I should meet? Because a lot of times in my mind, that prompted people that in my mind that I would never think of, just talking to people at a booth. So I hope that helps. And Amanda, I'm gonna end there. That's okay.
Absolutely, Mary Jo. I think that is a fantastic spot to end the presentation on. And just so you all know, you will be receiving the slides as well as the recording of this event within 1 week of today's presentation. And the slides will include a link to both the DoD Mentor-Protege program portal, as well as a link to the old SBA Mentor-Protege program portal, and a link to keep yourself up to date on the upgrades. And once that is out of construction, it should be good to go for you to start moving forward with this. But all in all, we at Norcal APEX Accelerator and all other APEX accelerators, we're here to help you. We want to see you succeed in whatever you decide is correct for your business, whether that is a mentor-protege program agreement or maybe just a joint venture with some other small businesses so you guys can tackle larger projects. And our procurement specialists can help you figure out what is right for you. So if you haven't thought about it throughout this whole presentation, please do think about connecting with Norcal APEX Accelerator or with your local APEX Accelerator wherever you are in the country. We're an absolutely free resource, so please utilize us. We are here to help. And so before we get into the final Q&A, I do want to let you all know a bit about our upcoming events that we'll be hosting. We have some very exciting ones. The first notable one is Business Pitch and Capability Statement Development. And we are actually hosting this as a part of our Prepare for the Fair session, as we are gearing up to have a procurement fair on October 16th in Redding, California. So if you are interested in attending that session, and if you are interested in attending that procurement fair, please take some time to register. We still have this business pitch capability statement development session, as well as next week's session, which is going to be covering government certifications. So it's a great resource for you. And we would love to see you not only at these sessions, which are virtual, but also at the in-person procurement fair in Reading on October 16th. And then we have a cybersecurity standards, controls, and compliance webinar coming up on October 24th, as well as a government-led innovation programs overview on November 19th. And then we're going to round out the year with a How to Stand Out certification overview webinar covering both federal and state certifications on December 10th. So right before the vacations, you can come and get all the information for the certifications you may qualify for, so you can start your New Year's off with those certification applications. And so with that, we'll get into our final Q&A section of this presentation. Please remember to enter your questions into the Q&A section. And please note, you will get your recording of this webinar, as well as the slides with all active links, within 1 week of this event. And so let's move on to questions. And I want to touch on the couple that have been lingering throughout the presentation, and I want to make sure, because I believe they were all answered in the past section. So I'm going to see if I can pick out anything that may not have been clear. Oh, Matthew was actually asking, he was asking about the timelines for the programs. And he asked, how often is the Protege program available and how long does it take? So is there a cycle to get a Mentor-Protege program, or can you submit an application whenever?
You just submit an application whenever, and I honestly do not know how long it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The processing of the applications can vary very dramatically. Very dramatically. It's hard to even give an estimate, because sometimes it can be done in a month and sometimes it won't be done in 6 months.
Yes.
Which is kind of government work, but we're always here as counselors, as a resource for you to help try and push it forward as fast as we can. And then we went over how to become a protege and what kind of next steps you would take there for both DoD and SBA. I think they're pretty similar.
Yes.
On making those connections and networking with the primes that have DoD contracts or SBA contracts already. And then we covered the duration of the agreements for both DoD and SBA protege programs. Fantastic. And I do have a couple of new questions coming in, as I believe that wraps up all of the lingering ones. I do hope we got all of your questions answered, but if you want further clarification, please enter it into Q&A. So Christopher was wondering if there are anecdotal stories about various mentor-protege experiences that have been successful, and what kind of actions or what kind of occurrences led up to those experiences. Like, can you give a story of maybe a successful protege that you've had in this program, Mary Jo?
I actually can. I have had many successful proteges, in particular, just because there are so many more in the SBA program than there are in the DoD program. So in the SBA program, for those of you who don't know, I'm actually located in Washington State. And when I was a contracting officer, I was responsible for doing a lot of the work that the Navy had in Alaska. In particular, out at the end of the Aleutian Islands on an island called Adak, and up at the Arctic Circle in Barrow, Alaska. And I worked with proteges who did a lot of that work as we were in Adak. We were actually closing the base and getting ready to turn it back to the native members who originally owned it through the centuries ago. And we had some of the strangest contracts because that base, the military were out there during World War II, and they used a lot of barbed wire, and they dug a lot of foxholes in the tundra, and they had these things called Rommel stakes, which were just like circular pieces of metal with a point at the very top, and then barbed wire strung among them. But if you were, through the years, the tundra had covered them. And if you were walking and you stepped on that or you fell on that, you were probably surely going to die. If not from the impact, you were probably going to die from the rust and everything else that was on it. But the Mentor-Protege I worked with went out and successfully removed those from the island, and including some that were hanging off the side of a cliff where they had to hang over a cliff and get those things pulled out. And the hardest part of that particular one, and we were so the government was just so glad it worked out, was trying to determine price reasonableness when you have nothing in the history of government contracting to help you figure out what's a reasonable price for doing something that had never been done before. So that was one example that comes to mind of where we were able to use a Mentor-Protege in an area where if we had to go out and look for companies who do that, we probably wouldn't have had anybody who could bid. Just that type of thing. Does that help? Or do you want something a little more routine?
No, I think that's a great story. Do you have another routine one that kind of comes to mind? Something that maybe they would expect to kind of go through, if that makes sense?
I've had a lot in environmental and in construction where you would actually see the mentor out there. It's specifically in environmental, where they were using different types of equipment and mapping things for unexploded, where they had to go in and look for unexploded ordnance. Again, probably not typical, but still very much done frequently all around the world. And I would actually see the mentor out there showing the protege what to look for and all the safety and this type of thing, which worked out really good. Even here locally, I would run into the two of them. One really successful mentor-protege that we had, it would always be the mentor and the protege out there doing the job walk. Anytime anything came up, they were always together. It was like they were hip to hip, and one would be explaining to the other, and the other one would be asking questions, and the work would get done. I think the hardest thing that mentor in particular told me was he had asked for help on scheduling, because the government has a schedule which sometimes isn't realistic, regardless of what your industry is. And it helped to have an experienced mentor who knew how to maneuver that and work with it and knew when to ask for extensions and why. so that it would not be costing the contractor. And that worked out really good continually. Does that
Good.
help? I hope that helps a little bit.
Yes. And Christopher said the first story was fantastic as well. So you're golden, Mary
Okay,
Jo.
okay, good.
And then we do have one more question. Uh, they're wondering, they're a small business with zero revenue, zero clients, and no past performance. And they're wondering what kind of advice you would give them to start preparing themselves for a mentor-protege agreement or a joint venture kind of thing. What kind of steps should they be taking now when they're still very much at the beginning to really position themselves well for that kind of goal?
I think my suggestion would be to work one-on-one with your APEX counselor. Sometimes I start with clients on a weekly basis, and then we go to monthly as they get experience. Where we can help you get everything. Get that foundation built to get the certifications that you need to get the marketing materials out there that you need. We can help you to review proposals and look for risks and that type of thing. We can't write a proposal for you any way, shape, or form, but we could show you how to outline what they're looking for in a proposal, where then you can go in and fill the blanks, and then we can review what you wrote against what they're asking, and let you know if there's any weaknesses or something that is super strong. But just come to your Apex Accelerator. We do a lot of different things that we can help you to, and that might be your end goal, but it also might be your middle goal is to going bigger. And
Hmm.
you control what it is that you want to do and where your business wants to go with us, and then we find ways to fit and walk step by step with you through the process.
Absolutely. And another really good resource is if your business is even a little bit further back, maybe it's an idea, maybe you've registered the name but don't have like the finances or the bank set up or like an actual like marketing plan kind of in place or a business plan. In those cases, I'd recommend you also connect with your local small business development center. And that's the best part about us is since we work so closely, especially in our region, you can work with both the Small Business Development Center to really build that business foundation and then continue to work with Norcal APEX Accelerator or your local APEX Accelerator to really direct and guide your business towards government contracting as you're setting it up. So these two resource partners, we're great friends. We work together very often, and we are always here to help you. And if you get connected with the both of us, it's almost like a full service business support, you know? So I always love to plug their services. The Small Business Development Center is another nationwide program. So no matter where you are, get connected with the Small Business Development Center for general business assistance, and then your NorCal Apex Accelerator or your local Apex Accelerator Center, wherever you are, to get that free government contracting assistance. And so I am seeing no more questions.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and give it a minute to see if any final questions come in. But while we do, I want to thank you all so much for being here with us today. I've seen so much positivity in the chat. Thank you all so much. You make me smile so much. We are so glad that you got a lot out of this presentation, that we are able to answer all of your questions and really get that information to you so you can make an educated decision on where you want your business to go in regards to this. And as you exit the webinar, you'll be redirected to our feedback survey. And this is something I adore because I love getting your guys' feedback, both in chat, but also in a more formalized way, because we really put on these webinars and we do these trainings for you. So your feedback is essential to making us better. So if maybe you didn't like the presentation or the sectioning or something, please let us know. We're always open to critique and feedback of that nature, and we're always looking to improve our programs for you. And the only way we're going to know how to do that is if you let us know. But on the same end, if you think we did fantastic, if you love the presentation, love the content, we always love to hear about that as well. So we highly value your feedback, no matter what side of the coin you are on after this presentation. And we would love if you could take a minute or two to give us that feedback. And then on that feedback page, you'll also see a bunch of links and resources to help you get connected to us and stay connected to us. So please feel free to check that out and leave us your feedback. And with that, we'll go ahead and give you back about 15 minutes to your day. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your Thursday, and I hope you're all gearing up for a great weekend.
Thank you all. It's been a joy. And thank you, Amanda.
Thanks, Mary Jo. Bye-bye.
Bye.